post-war international order. In China's eyes, Taiwan's future is inevitable. And if you look at the activities of several of China's Indo-Pacific neighbors, they appear to be preparing for some sort of escalation. For example, the Philippines has recently signed a defense pact with Canada to boost its standing and its defenses in the South China Sea. So, Victor, I'm going to go straight to you first. There is only one China as declared by the Declaration of Cairo, as well as dictated by the Panama Proclamation. Well, even if what Victor said is true, there is still a reality that we all have to deal with, and policymakers around the region and around the world who consider themselves stakeholders. In this issue, and there is no denying that other countries further afield feel that they are stakeholders. So even if China says it's an internal affair, obviously other countries, not just the United States, but increasingly European countries, Australia, more recently Japan, they consider themselves stakeholders as well. And the reality is that since the end of the Chinese Civil War in 1949, Taiwan and China have been separately governed. That's just a fact. They are separately governed, and the only way to bring about unification would be either a peaceful way or by force. And at the moment, China's position is very clear that they reserve the right to use force. And that's why we see other countries, including here in Taiwan, they're responding to that with their own military moves. Again, that's just a reality. It's not a biased position that I'm stating, I am just stating the facts that the two sides have been separately governed, and the people are preparing for the possibility that China will use force. Victor, I'm going to bring you in a moment, Bill, but I just want to get a quick response to you from that. Victor, particularly on that unification is either peacefully or by force, because even though you say that it is one China, a lot of countries, particularly the US, do not support a unilateral change to the status quo, which is, as Ross said, they are governed separately. So any change to that status quo, is it going to be peaceful, or is it going to be by force? First of all, we all know there was a civil war towards the end of the 1940s. Allow me to emphasize that civil war was never brought to an official end by any means. That is the reality of the separation across the two sides of the Taiwan Strait. Now, if China ever uses force, it will not be an invasion. It will be a resurrection of the unfinished civil war. And we want to avoid that. We want to achieve unification by peaceful means. But if, for example, as Ross said, other countries want to be stakeholders to be intervening in this situation, there will be the resurrection of the unfinished civil war. And I don't think any country in the world, including the United States, wants to shed the blood of their soldiers to be involved in a resurrected civil war across the two sides of the Taiwan Strait. Let us all work together to achieve the peaceful ratification that all of us want, and let us do our best to avoid the resurrection of the unfinished civil war. Bill, what do you make of that? If we are going to see a show of force, is it, as Victor says, a resurrection of an unfinished civil war, or is it an act of aggression? Well, obviously the Chinese narrative is that it is the unfinished part of the civil war. I mean, the other way of looking at it, extends from what we're saying, which is that in the last 130 years, China has only ruled Taiwan for 4 years between 1945 and 1949. And you have a very different sense of self, if you like, in Taiwan. You ask people, do they feel Chinese? Among the younger generation, it's a tiny proportion who say they feel exclusively Chinese.